Hey guys, it's me, Jack, and I'm back with another review. We all have that movie, don't we? The movie that changed our lives, that sparked our love for film. Everybody has that movie for them. It can be any movie, really. Gone with the Wind, High Noon, The Exorcist, Taxi Driver. The list is endless, really. But for me, that movie is the 1938 swashbuckler, The Adventures of Robin Hood. Before I saw this movie, I certainly loved movies. But it wasn't until I saw this movie that I really became obsessed with them, to the point that I started making my own movies. And my love and obsession with movies has only grown bigger over the years. This movie introduced me to so many swashbuckling adventure movies from the early days of Hollywood. And while many of these movies I still enjoy, none of them are as good as this one. I, like many people, was introduced to Robin Hood through the Disney movie. After seeing that film, I was interested in exploring some other versions of the story. So I rented this movie from the library, and it completely captured me. And in my humble opinion, which I think a lot of people would agree with me on, no other version of Robin Hood, at least that I've seen, is anywhere near as good as this one. The story of the movie takes place in medieval England, where the cruel and tyrannical Prince John has taken control, while his brother King Richard is being held prisoner in far-off lands. But then a hero arises in the form of Robin Hood, a man who leads a rebellion against the villainous prince. This is one of those movies that, despite being made in the 1930s, has aged unbelievably well. The script and dialogue for the film are exceptional. I've heard that originally they were planning on doing more Shakespearean-type dialogue, and I am very glad that they modernized it somewhat. Sure, you can make the argument that they did talk like that back in the old days, but this is a movie. It's not meant to be a completely accurate depiction of the old days. Plus, you can actually understand the dialogue. With that said, though, I don't feel like the dialogue was too modernized. And when you look back on the movie today, a lot of the dialogue remains very timeless. A lot of that is also due to the excellent casting. This movie has often been cited as one of those films where every single character was cast perfectly. Of course, there's Robin Hood himself, played by the legendary Errol Flynn. Flynn had worked on some movies before, like Captain Blood and The Charge of the Light Brigade. But this is the movie that really solidified him as a Hollywood legend. Robin Hood is a character who has been played by some really great actors over the years, but Errol Flynn is easily the best. Despite the fact that he's not even English, he's actually Tasmanian, you buy him as an Englishman. He's extremely charismatic, but he can also be serious when the situation calls for it, including giving one of the best rousing movie speeches of all time. I think my favorite scene with him in the movie is when he confronts Prince John at the beginning of the film. He just barges in while they're having dinner, drops a dead deer on their table, and starts to very passively aggressively tell Prince John that he's a scumbag and to go fuck himself. What's great about this scene is that it's doing a bunch of things at the same time. You get some exposition on why Prince John wants to tax the people, and while that's happening, the soldiers are locking the gate and preparing to throw a spear at Robin. And Robin is slowly starting to realize that, and preparing his escape. He's certainly not a complex character. In a way, he's more of a role model. A man who stands up against oppression and cruelty, even if it means his life. So don't go into this movie expecting Robin Hood to be this complex character. He's very much your typical movie hero. But he serves the story well, and Flynn plays him excellently, throwing in a perfect mix of seriousness and humor. He also has a wonderful laugh. We also have the late, great Olivia De Havland playing Maid Marian, Robin Hood's love interest. She had worked with Errol Flynn on some movies before, and would work with him again on some more after. And you can see why, because the two of them have great on-screen chemistry. Unlike some other versions of Robin Hood where the two of them are just in love right from the start, in this film they don't really get along that well at first. She just sees him as an outlaw, nothing more and nothing less. But as the film goes on, she starts to see the horrible things that Prince John is doing to the people, and that Robin Hood is really doing the right thing. And that's when she starts to fall in love with him. If anything, she's the one in this movie who goes through a character arc. No Robin Hood story is complete without his merry men. We have Will Scarlett, whose main interests include playing music while other people fight with staffs, and fat-shaming people.
Just got word of him. It's all right, he's one of us.
One of us? He looks like three of us.
Fuck you, asshole.
There's the character of Friar Tuck, played by Eugene Pallette, which, again, is just perfect casting. He has this great and easily distinguishable voice that fits the character of Friar Tuck perfectly.
If you're a robber, you'll get nothing from me. I'm a Colonel Fine vowed to poverty.
If this is poverty, I'll gladly share it with you.
That's what you are doing.
There's the character of Little John, played by Alan Hale, another actor who worked with Errol Flynn a lot. Admittedly, his casting isn't as good, mainly because he's not tall enough. The character of Little John is supposed to be enormous and absolutely tower over Robin Hood. But Alan Hale is pretty much the same size. He still does a good job, though. There's the character of Much, who has his own romantic subplot with Marion's lady-in-waiting, played by the wonderful Una O'Connor, aka the screaming woman from The Invisible Man. Of course, heroes are nothing when they don't have villains to bounce off of, and this movie boasts a great ensemble of evildoers. At the head of them is Prince John, played by Claude Rains. Prince John on paper is a very pathetic character. He's essentially a man-child, and while that's certainly not as played up here as in, say, the Disney version, it's still very much present. But Claude Rains manages to play the character in a way that still makes him come off as genuinely menacing. Despite the fact that he was a very short actor, he had such presence that he towered over his co-stars. Look at this moment here, where he puts Sir Guy in his place.
And how does your highness suggest that he be taken? If I may be so bold as to inquire.
Mind your words, Gisborne. You're fortunate not to be paying for this with your head.
Badass. Basil Rathbone plays the main physical antagonist in this movie as Sir Guy. Basil Rathbone is an incredible actor with a huge range. Many people knew him as Sherlock Holmes, which was a role that he played very well, but he could also play the heavy and be just as effective. While Prince John is more calm and collected, Sir Guy is angry and temperamental. And then we get the Sheriff of Nottingham, who in most versions of Robin Hood plays the role that Sir Guy plays here, as the main henchman. But here he's the comic relief villain. He works as a great contrast to Sir Guy. This is best shown at the end of the movie. Sir Guy instantly draws his sword and attacks Robin Hood. The sheriff starts to draw his sword and then backs away into the crowd. The sheriff certainly has his fair share of funny moments. When they capture Robin Hood, Sir Guy beats him, and then the sheriff tries to do the same thing, only to get kicked in the stomach. Despite the fact that he does have some funny moments, I appreciated the fact that they didn't just make him the comic relief villain. When they're thinking of a way to capture Robin Hood, the sheriff suggests holding an archery tournament, and having the Lady Marian present the prize. He picks up on the fact that Robin and Marian are very much falling in love, and it would be an effective way to lure Robin into their trap. But neither Sir Guy or Prince John considers this, and what do you know, it actually works. They capture him. This is just another reason why I love this movie so much. They could have so easily just made the sheriff a bumbling idiot, but he's actually more intelligent than he seems. Admittedly, none of these guys are the best villain in a Robin Hood movie. That honor still goes to the Sheriff of Nottingham from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, played by Alan Rickman. But they are still great antagonists nonetheless. The film is excellently made, with some truly amazing costumes. We get to see Robin Hood in his iconic green tights. And yeah, I know people say that it's not historically accurate, but once again, this is a movie. And when many people think of Robin Hood, they think of his green tights. The film also has some wonderful set pieces, in particular the inside of the castle. The action scenes are incredibly exciting. Of course, we get some good sword fights. like the playful and comedic one between Robin and Friar Tuck. But the big one that everybody remembers is of course the final fight between Robin and Sir Guy. In my opinion, the greatest sword fight in cinema history. Sometimes, to make a thrilling climax, you don't need explosions or a big CGI army. You just need two guys in a room duking it out. And this scene delivers on that. We get some good back and forth banter between the two of them, but it doesn't hijack from the intensity of the scene either. It's used just enough. We get a wonderful shot where we just see the shadows of the two of them fighting. The fight scene also makes great use of the objects in the room. Robin throws a candle at Sir Guy, he kicks the table at him. It all just builds and builds until finally Sir Guy falls to his death. Admittedly, this scene isn't perfect. I mean, how is Sir Guy okay after falling down all those stairs? There's also this bit where if you pause it, you can actually see Sir Guy's sword fall out of his hand. Granted, it's not something you would notice on a first viewing, but when you watch this movie as much as I have, you tend to notice these little things. But that doesn't ruin it at all. It's still an amazing scene. And then, of course, we have the award-winning score for this movie by the great Erich Wolfgang Korngold. This musical score is just incredible, and it adds so much to every scene. The emotional scenes, the action scenes. It gives the film a very operatic feel. Look at this bit here. We cut back and forth from the merry men ambushing the Norman knights, to Sir Guy, Marion, and the sheriff riding their horses. And the music changes back and forth to reflect the mood of the scene. Now that's some great music. This movie is one of the most important films in my life. It made me a fan of Errol Flynn as an actor. It brought me to so many other great Hollywood movies. And it really made me appreciate the magic of film. It's a movie that, despite being made in 1938, is still just as exciting and effective today. And I am of course going to give The Adventures of Robin Hood a 10 out of 10.